for this. There we go.
There we
All
go.
right.
Okay, awesome. So what we're going to be covering today, just kind of starting with the basics, giving some context to why financial services are the way that they are in the cannabis industry, the limitations and kind of misconceptions of those services, and then the regulatory frameworks that give us access to the financial services that are available. We'll be talking briefly about retail and B2B payment solutions. I don't want to go too heavily into that because I did do a podcast last week with the MSCTA on burning questions, and you should definitely check that out to hear more about retail and B2B payments. And then we'll also be talking about cash management solutions, the ecosystem of providers that are needed to fully have control over your finances in your cannabis business, and then how we can help. I'll try and not make this pitch heavy, but definitely want to talk about how we can help provide those services. So with that being said, I already said this, but my name is Katie Haynes. I started in the financial space in 2020. And since then, I've had the opportunity of speaking with hundreds of operators across the country, everything from new market, just getting started and finding the solutions, all the way up to larger enterprise MSO clients. But I specialize in new markets and building out that suite of services for first-time business owners or those getting into a new market like Mississippi. I previously worked as a teacher for 3 years, and with that came my passion for education and advocacy and problem solving, especially in an industry like cannabis, where there are a lot of problems and it's kind of hard to find the solutions sometimes, but they are out there. So I would love to hear from y'all, learn more about who you are, what type of license you're going after, if it's one or multiple, and if you're currently licensed or are waiting for that to come through. So if y'all want to take just a second and drop that in to the chat box, I would love to see who all we have here. My VP is also on this call as well. His name's Dominic. He is going to be helping me monitor the chat as well throughout this. So feel free to drop in some questions there if you have them as we're going through, and I will try and answer them all at the end as well. So a bit about us here at Abaca. Our mission is to empower the cannabis industry by securing wealth for new generations of innovators and entrepreneurs. I'll let y'all read that on your own. Don't want to read it all to you, but essentially we want to be able to unlock financial services for cannabis industry that are standard in almost every other industry, but are just a bit harder to get access to as a cannabis operator. We have a complete banking and treasury management solution serving small businesses all the way up to MSO enterprise level customers. We have listed some companies over here on the right side that we're working with currently. And then we have also as of just a month or so ago, we've reached about 3 million in processed cannabis dollars. And so we're very excited about that. And we also have our founders were named in the inaugural Forbes 420 list of innovators, advocates, and leaders in the industry. We've been doing this for about 5 years. We started in Arkansas whenever the medical program went live here, and our founders saw a need and knew that they had expertise in financial technology, law, banking, and a full litany of services that could really solve the banking problem for cannabis operators. With that being said, here's some of our experienced financial service team. We have Dan Rhoda. He has a lengthy background in regulatory compliance and banking attorney. He was an attorney previously. Brian Bauer, who's worked with over 60 financial technology companies. He worked with FIS as well as the Arkansas Banking Commission, working for local state charter banks. And then Dominic is on this call with us. He is our VP of Business Development, and he got his start in the financial space and jumped into cannabis in Illinois. And so he has had a lot of experience with taxes and financing for cannabis companies. And then if you do have the pleasure of working with us, if you do work with us, you'll have the pleasure of working with Charlotte Dollar. She is responsible for all of our customer success and happiness, and she is wonderful. She is just a wealth of knowledge. And so that is our team, plus about 25 more members in multiple locations across the country. So the cannabis industry as a whole, I don't have to tell you how much opportunity that there already is there, but in 2021 alone, there was $25 billion in cannabis sales in the US. With that being said, only the estimates are that 74% of cannabis businesses are banked. However, there's this huge misconception in cannabis banking that everything is unbanked. People are burying cash in holes in their backyards. And while there are some operators doing that, nearly 74% of operators have some access to some financial services. The reports show that there are less than 5% of banks and credit unions in the US that are serving cannabis. There are over 11,000 financial institutions between banks, credit unions, and state chartered banks that are servicing that are operational. However, less than 1% of those are actually servicing the cannabis industry in a meaningful way. A lot of the numbers that we see from SARS reporting or from other banking estimates are for smaller banks that may only have 1 or 2 accounts, or SARS reporting shows that they received banking from a cannabis banking payments from a cannabis company. However, they were quickly let go. And so the number of banks meaningfully working in the cannabis space is roughly around 1% of overall financial institutions in the US. So all of this to say, why is it so hard for banks to get into the space? Well, it is costly because there is a laid out network and framework for the compliance that needs to go into keeping these bank accounts above board and operational. However, it is a patchwork of multiple different compliant resources. So the Cole memos from 2014, which led way to the FinCEN guidance, as well as AML and BSA guidelines, and then state specific guidelines. Banks essentially have to relearn all of the bank specific laws for each new state that gets into the market and work within the FinCEN guideline and Cole memos to make sure that they are staying compliant. But banks do have a responsibility to be able to service the communities that they're in. And so there are banks that are getting into the cannabis space. It just takes a lot of time and money. And so without financial technology to be able to back the compliance up, a lot of banks will quickly get out of the space because it becomes too much of a burden. So what all of this means for you when you are looking at building out your financial suite is that you need to find strong partners with experience in the industry. Oftentimes you don't want to be the first customer that someone has when dipping their toe into the cannabis industry, whether it be a CPA or a security company or banking. Finding a partner that has a history of and track record of servicing the industry and staying compliant and above board is the best way to go. Establish your banking and utilize financial technology to streamline those processes. Without financial technology, it is a lot of paperwork and it can become cumbersome on the bank, as well as you trying to verify all of the revenue that's coming through your account. You'll need to build a strong ecosystem of solutions that best fit your business model, everything from your POS system, your cash management and logistics, your inventory management, and then your integrating payroll and accounting into your day-to-day functions as well. But our biggest advice is to start compliant and then stay compliant. It's can be easy to cut corners in the beginning when you're first getting started, but if you start compliant, it is so much easier to keep that up, and it protects you in the long run and future-proofs you for future growth. So the meat and potatoes, what y'all all actually came here to talk about is cash management. So let's dive into that. First, right off the bat, you've all heard that it costs money to make money, and that's absolutely true, especially in the cannabis industry, with lack of financial services being readily available. Solutions are needed for counting, storing, transporting, and securing the cash that you have on hand. And estimates from the IHL cash multiplier study show that on average, cash costs 4 to 15 cents out of every dollar that is received in revenue. And that goes to handling, cash shrink, logistics, and overall financial loss. So making sure that you are setting yourself up for success with the cash that you will have on hand is vastly important. However, the best cash management solution is reduction of cash intake. As little as you can possibly have, the less it's going to cost you in the long run. So this slide here shows kind of the preferences of payments within retail as a whole. In cannabis, credit cards are not currently a no-fly zone, with Visa and MasterCard memos recently or coming out stating that cannabis is not something that they're currently prepared to operate with. So you're looking at debit, cash, and ACH solution for retail payments. With that being said, the studies do show that most customers prefer to pay with plastic, and having the ability to pay with plastic right off the bat in the store is vastly important, because we do see increases in basket size, and on average they estimate that about 24% of your customers will prefer to use cash. The other 76 will prefer card. And as you increase that basket size over to $100 per basket, that decreases to about 8% of people wanting to pay with cash and the rest card. So I'm not going to go too deep into this because we did do this podcast last week, but there are debit card solutions available on the market. Typically, you see a higher adoption rate with them, and customers are making that decision for how much they're going to pay for their basket at the point of sale. And so you often see a very large increase in basket size with a debit solution. There are also mobile app and wallet-based ACH solutions. We do have a lot of customers that utilize these. However, things to think about whenever you're using an ACH solution is that you do have to drive customer adoption of the app or wallet-based solution in store, but it can be used to drive loyalty. A lot of the customers that we see that use this tend to come back to that dispensary over and over. I put in here information about curbside and e-commerce. Currently, that is not available in Mississippi. A lot of menus online like Weed Maps or Dutchie allow customers to pre-select their order, and then they can pick it up and pay for it in store. However, at the moment, Mississippi is not allowing for any prepayment, but thinking about future proofing, that may be a solution that you need to look into in the future. So the challenges in the cash heavy industry are obviously retail payments, getting access to them, and making sure that the retail payment provider that you are using is compliant. Not all actors in the space are as upfront as they should be, and you want to make sure that the solution that you pick is going to be compliant. You may want to look for masking or stacking, which can look like the ATM or the retail payment solution that you're using is registering as a payment from somewhere down the road. You want to make sure that that is linked to your specific location, and that they are aware that it is cannabis transactions and that they are staying compliant with those regulations. For B2B payments, there are options built into most banking solutions, and if you have access to online banking, you can send ACH wires, and most places should be able to get you set up with checks. However, checks are not the best solution in the space, just because you are handing out your ACH information with each check that you share. So for B2B customers and wholesalers, make sure that you're choosing the most compliant and the safest solution for you to pay and receive funds from your customers. And then payroll is a huge challenge in the cannabis industry. Lots of people have, for a long time, were resorting to paying their employees in cash. However, this is changing for the positive very rapidly. There are many larger payroll companies that are getting into the cannabis space and providing those solutions for them. So you should have access to a payroll company pretty readily available. And there are many solutions that have that integrated into the banking platform that you choose. So, risks for cash heavy operations. A few of these are going to be pretty intuitive. Employee theft is a very large one. A study by Cannabis-Friendly America shows that nearly 90% of all theft and revenue losses come from some form of employee theft, whether that be discounts, skimming money off the top, or poor cash handling strategies that allow for not a lot of monitoring of employees. This can become a problem. This leads into mishandling of funds. Humans will err, and so it's best to have counting and sorting of funds on hand be done electronically. It does save time for the person counting the cash, but it also allows for more accurate counting of funds on hand. Crime is always going to be something that is prevalent in a cash heavy operation like cannabis companies, and then depositing cash in person can also be a huge safety risk to not only the business, but to the employee who may have to take the cash funds into a branch themselves. Oftentimes we see providers that are entities that use the cash deposit in person, having to arm their employees to feel safe about sending their funds, a couple hours away to their depository bank. And so finding a solution that takes the risk off of the employee and puts it onto a provider is always going to be the best solution. And then lack of secure storage on site. The reality of cash in cannabis, even with access to cashless payment forms through ACH or debit transactions, nearly 50 to 65% of patients will still pay with cash for a cannabis retail transaction. This is because there is a stigma around being able to use cashless forms to pay for these products, and education with the patients may help lower the amount that will pay with cash. However, it's really going to be having educational signs on your property that can tell them we do allow card, and then making that process as easy as possible for them to use it in store. So what is the best way to deal with all the cash that you're inevitably going to have on hand? First and foremost, establishing a bank account. You also want to create secure measures and formal cash handling procedures in store to cut down on theft, funds, and crime. This seems very intuitive. However, people who do not put in the effort on the front to really make sure that they have processes and that every step of the cash in store, all the way to it being into your bank account, is accounted for, that there are SOPs and that there is a plan for that. We see that a lot, and people have to constantly keep updating those SOPs as things change, both from the state government and in your store, what you're seeing with how the processes are working. Partner with a cash courier that can service all the vaults and machines and transport your funds. This is something that we recommend. You can piecemeal these services together. However, having one solution for all of them often cuts down on the amount of time and the cost of having all of them serviced in store. And then utilize smart safes or cash recyclers. We will get to what these are here in a bit, but they are additional resources to help manage the funds on hand that give you real-time access to the cash that you have in store. So you want to establish a culture of compliance and safety, and this starts with employee hiring, training, and monitoring in store. Making sure that employees know that they are being monitored, but providing them with a space where they feel comfortable to do their jobs correctly, and that they've been given the resources to make sure that they are handling product and cash correctly at every stage. This means creating SOPs from everything from opening tills, closing tills, transporting the cash within the store, and who has access to be able to handle these funds. A lot of POS systems and a lot of safes give you the access to assign permissions to your employees so that you can monitor and track who has access to that cash throughout the day. And that technology is something that can be integrated in with your banking solution as well. So set your employees up for success. We often recommend using blind drawer reconciliation, having your employees count down their tills at the end of their shifts, or counting down with a cash recycler at the end of the day so that they can verify the funds that are in their tills. But the employee does not know how much is supposed to be in there, and it is verified using a POS system or your seed to sell tracking at the end of the day to verify how much is supposed to be in there and that total is correct. And then SOPs for loss prevention, always a great idea. And SOPs, we recommend updating them as frequently as necessary to make sure that you are accommodating for any changes in the procedure in your store. Plan ahead to deter crime. So security surveillance technology is obviously a requirement by the state. I believe you have to have 24-hour access to video for every square foot of your cannabis operation, with the exception of bathrooms. And with that, you also have to have 1080p 30 frames per second, I believe, and you have to store that for 120 days. So finding a security and technology company that can help you with that is going to be crucially important. Secure storage vault for product and cash. Maintaining security on site and having entry control that helps with checking IDs as people are coming in, which can deter criminals from viewing you as vulnerable. And then carrying cash pickup schedule, or varying your cash pickup schedules and training your employees for a worst case scenario. We hope that it never happens. However, you want everyone in your store to be prepared if it does and know that their safety is important. Establish security SOPs and review them frequently, and then work with the security team that is experienced in cannabis. That is important, is to have that experienced team. So we talked about smart safes and cash recyclers. A smart safe is a one-directional cash depositing, but it allows you to have a certain amount of bills in the smart safe, and it counts it all down for you. And some banks can even have live real-time feed access to the funds that are in the smart safe so that you can view your cash on hand through your mobile banking solution. And they can also be integrated with your cash logistics partner and be serviced by them when they come for your cash pickups as well. And then the cash recyclers are a two-directional cash depositing and dispensing machine. Your authorized users at your location can refill the tills in the morning using this machine, and it cuts down on the amount of time that employees have to spend hands-on counting all of that cash. We had a customer before the cash recycler. Their general manager of their store was spending 3 hours a day counting cash out and counting cash back in, and the amount of time and money spent for that GM to count those funds down could have better been used to progress things within the dispensary or within the entity, but they were stuck sitting and counting tills, and that took up a very large time of their day. But this gives real-time cash availability, and it is an end-to-end cash solution. And then you can assign permission using codes with the solution as well. So for ATMs, almost everyone will have an ATM in their retail location. If you are a dispensary owner, you want to do your due diligence with the ATM provider that you are selecting. Are they compliant? Are they operating with cannabis clients, and do they have a reliable track record? Things to look for in the terms and conditions are seeing if they have long-term commitments. If they state that the business that you are running in there is not a cannabis company, then you know that they're not working with cannabis companies and that that solution is not compliant. And then verifying that that transaction is actually tied to your location and, you know, not the pet shop down the store. A compliant solution will be tied to your location and will be transparent about the fact that you are a cannabis company. And then self-funding ATMs is a question that we get asked a lot. There are some situations where your bank, your cash logistics provider, and your ATM provider are sharing information and have an ecosystem that allows for all of them to communicate, and all of the transactions that are going through it and the funds in store are cannabis, and that they have been tracked and approved. At that point, some places will allow you to self-fund your ATM. However, if your bank, logistics provider, and ATM provider are not communicating and they are not verifying those funds before you put them in, it can be seen as money laundering to self-fund your ATMs. So be careful and ask your provider if they allow that. So benefits of a cash logistics provider: it does increase your employee and customer safety. In a couple states, quite a few customers that I've talked to, their cash depositing process was to hand their bud tender, you know, $500,000 in a duffel bag with a shotgun and a bulletproof vest, and send them on their merry way 3 hours down the road. And that puts your company at a huge liability for the cash that is in the bud tender's hands, and it also puts your bud tender at huge risk as well. And so we always recommend using a cash logistics provider to get those funds from your location to your bank account. They are armored and insured to reduce the risk of loss. And so as soon as the cash is in the hands of the armored vehicle service, it is insured. And that is not, if something were to happen, that is on the cash logistics provider. They can also service your vaults, your smart safes, cash recyclers, and ATMs seamlessly to transfer your cash, so that you have all of that solution wrapped into one. So with all of the information about the cash management solution, it's very important to consider a bank that can provide all of these solutions to you and help complete that suite of financial services. Whenever you're looking for a cannabis-friendly banking solution, there are typically two options. It's either a state chartered bank or local credit union. These are usually private held, usually have under $1 billion in total asset size that they can have on hand, and they have a willingness to take a risk. I believe there's one other banking solution currently in Mississippi, and they are getting into the cannabis space. And then we fall under the financial technology solution. They're FDIC insured accounts, which are the gold standard, and it is the best to get an individual DDA account in your business name. Some other financial technology companies in the market will use FBO accounts, where they will manage your entity and many other entities out of one bank account. And this puts you at risk, because even if you are doing your due diligence, someone else in the mix there may not be, and that puts the account at risk of termination for non-compliant operators that you may be lumped in with. So make sure that you are asking your cannabis-friendly banking solution, their deposit capabilities, their experience in the industry, and how they're planning on doing their compliance, because this can become a heavy burden on the operator, and it should be a burden of your bank. So when you're getting your documents together, setting up your entity and looking into banking, you want to be thoughtful in naming your entity. You don't want to misrepresent the nature of your business, but you also don't want to create unwanted attention. This is just an example, but things can get kind of tricky if your entity name is Big Blazing Marijuana Buds 420 LLC. You know, it's very obvious and very screaming out loud that you are a cannabis company. So you may want to keep it succinct, to the point, but not hide the business that you are doing. Get a business address and phone number. This seems intuitive, but you're going to have bills and other statements that need to be mailed there, and your bank is going to ask for a physical location. And then get your online presence in order. You want to be cohesive across your online presence as well as in person, but your banking partner is also going to be reviewing your online presence to make sure that you are staying compliant with what you are putting online. And then get your corporate documents in place. All of these documents are going to be needed during onboarding, articles of incorporation, operating agreement, or bylaws, your cap table if it is relevant, EIN, things along those lines that you should have prepared. And then your source of funds. You may need to prove where the funds that are going into your account are coming from, if they're coming from other businesses or personal financials or investors. You'll need personal identification, 2 forms of ID, and these must match your home address. If they do not match your home address, you will need to provide verification that the home address that you are at currently, that it is linked to you. And then a good credit and no disqualifying felonies. Within Mississippi, there are a few disqualifying felonies. Usually these are for violent crime. And then a signed banking resolution or corporate minutes, granting authorization for the members to open the bank account, and 3 months of previous bank statements. This is typically needed if you are opening a merchant processing account, but they will need the minimum balance to show that you are a funded entity. So when choosing the right partner, know their compliance procedures. If the partner bank that you're choosing does not utilize financial technology to help streamline the compliance, you may be stuck with the burden of having to provide invoices and receipts for transactions and deposits going into the account. And this can become almost a full-time job of keeping that burden of compliance up. You want to make sure that you're choosing a banking solution that takes on that burden for you by utilizing technology to verify the funds entering and exiting your account using a seed to sale system. So pick a provider that is committed to the long haul. Experience in this industry is key, and consider what services are available digitally. Being able to do all of this from your phone instead of having to drive into a physical location can often be a huge plus whenever you're in a very rural location. And then the number of financial services that are available. A depository account should be the bare minimum that your financial institution is providing for you. You should have access to financial services that are pretty standard in every other industry. So, and then they want to support organizational growth, and they're cohesive across markets if they are expanding into other markets. You want to make sure that they are providing you the same solutions that they are providing other areas as well. So you will have an ecosystem of solutions that you will utilize when you are establishing all of your financial solutions, your online ordering and product holds and menus, electronic payments, and then digital banking as well. And these are all entities that we have worked with, are currently working with a lot of our customers who utilize them in their day-to-day. So there are many more that are also not on here, but if you have a solution that you are needing to use, you should have a provider that should be able to work with what works best for your company. Best practices for today and tomorrow. As you are future-proofing your business, consolidate your relationships when possible. It is very difficult to have 100 different companies servicing 100 different needs. If you can find companies that can service many of them at once, that's usually the best way to go. Connect with financial tools and seed to sale for automated collections and compliance. We kind of touched on this a minute ago. Having a bank that automates that for you and makes the burden of compliance the bank's issue and not yours is going to be vastly important important when you're setting up these solutions. And then prepare your company's financial backbone for future growth and exit opportunities. As my CEO always says, this comes down to compliance, and that means having your stuff together, making sure that from the very beginning you are on top of it and you are keeping up with all of the required documents at every stage. Data is so important for everything from POS and knowing what products are selling, being able to monitor your employees, and being able to monitor cash on hand as well as deposits. All of these things can be done through financial technology and can be easily and readily available to you. So with Abaca compliant banking, we do have FDIC insured commercial checking accounts. We can manage your finances online. You can kind of see this info, or the graphic over here of our mobile banking solution, as well as what it looks like on your phone so that you can access this wherever you are. We can do online checks, bill pay, ACH, wire. We can do in-person checks, get debit cards for any signers on the account, which is a huge one that most people don't think about, is how are you paying for your daily expenditures in the office? That sometimes gets overlooked. And then receivables and treasury management modules. If you are planning to expand into more licenses or eventually into more states, you need a solution that's able to grow with you. And then we also do streamlined compliance with seed to sale integration. So here is the full financial ecosystem that we provide here at Abaca. Online banking, bill payment, smart safes, and cash logistics. We do have a provider that can service ATMs, smart safes, and cash recyclers, as well as cash pickup, and they can help set up a varied schedule with you so that it's not easy to pick up on when that is happening. Your receivables management, treasury management as you are growing, merchant services, access to debit transactions, whether it's TruePin or an ACH solution. And then we have quite a few features that are going to be rolling out by the end of this year, including an accounting integration and a payroll integration as well. And we are constantly building out our platform to fit what our customers are needing for their business. So if you see a solution that can be beneficial to you, it gets added into what we're working on. The takeaways here: everything is evolving in cannabis, and fast. I always say that in cannabis, everything is like dog years. 1 year is 7 years because things change so rapidly and so quickly. So you need to be aware of the threats, but also the opportunities, and how to suss out what is a compliant and safe opportunity for you and which ones may not be compliant that you need to stay wary of. As financial technology services become more readily available, you'll need to discover simpler, faster, and more cost-effective ways for both retail and wholesale payments and solutions on hand. And then as payments are normalized, operators can expect rapid shifts as the consumer expectations pivot towards standard retail norms. And in a new market like Mississippi, with not many people having preconceived notions of what it will be like being a patient and that customer experience in store, you can expect quite a few customers to, you to kind of set the tone for what that standard should be. If you set the tone of having access to debit card transactions, they will think that that is standard in the industry, and it will help cut down on the cost or the cash on hand. So with that being said, I am going to exit out of this here and pull up the chat. This is Q&A portion. So if y'all have any questions, please let me know and we will try and get them answered here. If you do not think of any now, we can definitely shoot you an email, or you could shoot us an email and we can get them answered. My email is here at the bottom of the screen, so feel free to contact me at any time. And there is a landing page that was within the email for this webinar, I believe, that directs you to Abaca. So if you do have any questions that you want to hop on a call, we can definitely get them answered for you.
Yeah, so I think there's a little technical difficulties we're having with the chat over here in the Q&A.
Okay.
But we do have your contact right here. And I just want to also let people know that you'll be able to see this webinar as well on our YouTube. We want to make sure we post it and we have it there. And yeah, I really want to thank you all for coming for this today, Katie and Dom. I am very excited that Abaca is a part of the MSCTA, and I'm excited that you all have this information and this great company that can assist business owners with cannabis banking. It's very important to hear, and I am so appreciative that you all can help relieve some of that pressure or some of that anxiety behind cannabis banking.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us. I can honestly say every time I am in Mississippi, it is one of the greatest experiences, some of the friendliest people on earth. And we're so excited to be working there with y'all and helping build out a successful future there. So thank you so much for having us, and we will talk soon.
All right. See y'all later.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, y'all.
Thanks, guys.